Friday, and we're talking firearms during this hour of the program, as we normally do. I also wanted to mention that Todd Eccles is joining us from Patriot Defense. Forrest actually has a course that he's teaching today, similar to what Todd does on a regular basis. Forrest sometimes is called upon to show off some skill and help people develop some skill of their own. But Forrest asked me to share a couple of things this morning. He mentioned on the air last week that a neighbor of his in Murtaugh had been crushed between a trailer hitch and I believe a wall, and for about 10 hours before anyone found him. And he is still hospitalized in Boise. The man has lost a leg, and he is on dialysis right now. He's got some internal injuries that are quite serious. The family's bills are already totaling in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Forrest and Washington Street Pawn have been trying to help out a bit by, at least if you come in, you can buy a chance on a rifle that they've donated. And you can also buy some of these tickets at the Burley Ace Hardware, Joe's Market in Murtaugh, Rufus True Value in Murtaugh, and of course at Washington Street Pawn. But he wanted me to mention a fellow came in after the show last week from Sunrise Organic Dairies and said, here's $500 toward the cause. And Forrest said, all right, let me get you some tickets. And he said, I don't want a ticket, just $500. Forrest said, let me give you a ticket, at least one ticket. So you've got some people who stood up already and done something very nice for this family. And if you could, again, drop by, buy some tickets, and you could actually win a firearm out of all of this. But you could also help these people out. Todd, welcome.
It's good to be back. Sorry I missed last Friday. I was working my day job on top of a milk silo, so I'd rather have been here.
I'll tell you what, this is a lot of fun when we do this every week.
It is.
We weave in a lot of serious stuff along with some of the lighter-hearted stuff. And I bring that up because I was just mentioning before you got in here this morning, with this hurricane as it swept across the Caribbean, the people who live in U.S. territories, and that would be Guam, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Solomon, I think it's part of the Solomon chain, these places are still, they're American citizens, even though it's not a state. So they're subject to the Constitution, meaning that they have the same rights that all of us have. And earlier this week, it had been reported that the governor in the Virgin Islands had ordered all firearms, private firearms, seized. And his excuse was, well, the National Guard may need them during the course of the storm. So he was a guest a couple of nights ago on Fox News with Tucker Carlson, and he tried to give an explanation, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So last night, Tucker had in Dana Lash, who we've mentioned before on the program. She's a talk show host and spokesperson for the NRA. She was on the program. Now, look, she's on the program as the spokesperson for the NRA because she looks great.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be there if she had buck teeth.
No.
She'd be doing radio still, but she wouldn't be on TV.
She's pretty bright gal, though.
She's a very bright person. And she was on the program, and she's responding to what's going on in the Virgin Islands, offering the point of view of the National Rifle Association.
I was confused by that interview with the governor last night, and our questions were completely sincere. Are you planning to do this? The order seemed to me, as a non-attorney, to give power to the National Guard to do this. What exactly is the truth? Do you know?
Well, Tucker, thank you for having me. I watched you question the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and just as you were, I was also confused, and so were millions of members of the NRA, because there was a lot of discussion. What on earth does he mean that he only was allowing the National Guard to procure firearms and ammunition for use in these emergency purposes? Because, Tucker, and you quoted the statement that this governor himself released, he was allowing, he used the word seize firearms. Yes. It didn't say procure firearms. He said seize firearms and ammunition and any sort of incendiary weaponry, anything, explosive devices, anything of that nature. He used the word seize, and so he says there's a misunderstanding. I am happy to believe that there is one, but yet there's the troubling problem of what he wrote in the statement, Tucker.
Well, sure, and you wouldn't need the authority to seize weapons from your own armory, of course, which is what he was trying to say. The fact remains that we've seen this in other natural disasters. We saw it during Katrina with Mayor Nagin, now in prison, who authorized the police force there to do it. And I guess what bothers me most is that it really is confirmation that a lot of the pro-Second Amendment people have a right to be a little bit paranoid about gun registration.
There you go. I think that's a great point to be made, especially when there's a disaster.
Yeah, and it's like, never let a good emergency go to waste. How many times have we heard that? And I bel- I'd like to think that he misplayed his words, but I honestly don't think he was. He said seize the firearms, and then later on he said he wanted to seize the firearms and ammunition so the National Guard, in case if you disarm the population, why does the National Guard need the guns? Who are they going to fight? I mean, it's not having a war right there. You're just trying to fix up the city. I mean, they should have plenty, what they need. If there's bad guys out there doing looting and whatnot, they should have what they need to take care of that. And then you take the guns away from the general population, then they're defenseless against anyone. They're defenseless. I'm sure the bad guys are lining up, handing their stuff in.
Now, in Texas, neighborhood people in their own neighborhoods were putting up signs telling looters,
Yeah.
"You loot, you die. We shoot." And you know what? Governor there said, "Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is," and let people defend themselves in these situations.
There's a group I follow. They've got ties to a gentleman here in the valley, and it's like a ministry group. It's a certain ministry. They go out and they help people and preach their gospel and whatnot. Good. So they went down there with boats. They went down there with everything to help rescue people, to take food, to help with cleanup and whatever needed to be done. Good people, good hearts. And it shows them on a boat, and they're standing there with rifles, and they're out there because there's been situations down there
Mhm.
of people, rescuers, getting their boats stolen from them, getting shot at, getting their supplies taken. You don't know what you're going to come against, so you got to have your weapon. There was a picture on Facebook last night, and someone said it was in Florida, and I don't know if this is real legit or not. But there's a picture on a gun counter like a Walmart, and it said due to the national disaster, due to this natural disaster, we will not be selling, or we cannot sell firearms and ammunition at this time. And someone posted on there, and they said that they thought in Florida had a thing maybe where some states have this deal where if there is a natural disaster, they actually can't sell those type of things. If you're going to the store right now and a hurricane is like 2 or 3 days away and you're going to buy guns and ammo, you're doing it wrong. You need to stock up beforehand. You need to be prepared beforehand. You need to know how to use it beforehand. You need to have a plan in place.
I have to admit, I was opening a drawer today looking for some clothes that I hadn't opened up in a while. And I looked in, I thought, oh, I didn't realize I had that much ammo. But
That's not a bad thing.
because if I see it on sale, I pick it up, and then a couple of months later, I see it on sale, I pick it up, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, I didn't realize there was that much around the house.
You can never have enough. I was with a guy yesterday on my day job, and he's talking about wanting to take my class with me, or at least come shooting with me. And he's building this new custom Glock. And he said when he gets it built, he wants to bring it out to my house, and he'll let me shoot it. He's like, I'll bring it out there, and you can provide us the ammo. I know you got tons of it. And he goes, you got lots, right? And I just kind of looked at him and grinned. But have enough, and having enough, you can never have enough. If you have a lot, you need a lot more.
The thing that gets me, we had, I think during the course of this week, the little short guy in North Korea again making threats, and one of those threats was to detonate an electronic pulse weapon over the United States.
EMP.
Now, if that happens, and my belief is that there would be a lot of shortages. You have to protect what you have, and in this part of the country, you have a lot of people who've prepped. Number one, their church tells them to, or number two, they just feel that they moved to Idaho because they felt this would be a good place to be in that situation. There are people out there who know, though, that there are people in this part of the country who have stores and supplies. And if you are looking to protect your family, and we had something like that happen, and for 2 years, you might be going 2 years without the power grid backup and other crises happening, you're going to need some means to do this. And this guy's action in the Virgin Islands gives the impression that there are some politicians who feel that they would better keep order by just taking the law-abiding gun owners' firearms and ammunition, leaving them subject to whatever violence the criminals, the predators is what they'll be during a crisis like that.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. There's people here in not just in the Virgin Islands. I know that's a U.S. territory or whatever. But here in the States, they want to take your guns. They do want to confiscate your guns, and they have tried many different ways, and they're not stopping now. I mean, it might be a little quiet right now, but that's you almost need to worry more when it's quiet because they're off planning something big. They're going to try to sneak in a back door, come after the ammo, come after whatever. So They haven't let up, and they do want your firearms. They do.
Yeah, we've seen that in Seattle with the tax on ammunition. They don't even have to tax, your handgun.
Yeah.
They tax the ammunition to the point where you can't afford it any longer, and then all you've got is a club in your hand instead of a gun.
Yep. And it's called. If they do that, you need to move, and you need to look into learning how to reload.
Yeah, yeah.
So that makes it kind of nice. But yeah, if they, you buy a gun, your gun is useless if you can't afford the ammo for it. If there's some places that talked about making it so if you buy a firearm in a certain states that you have to carry this huge insurance policy because of it. Well, if you can't afford that, then what's the use of having a gun? So they try to come at it all different ways.
In fact, I saw a story earlier this week that suggested that Justice Gorsuch and the rest of the Supreme Court, if we have another justice like him that comes along in the next couple of years, most of those laws about taxes on ammunition and also insurance will be going away because they will simply not tolerate it.
Well, we can only hope that's awesome. I guess you need to pay attention who you vote for. Vote for the right person, someone who's going to, assign someone to those Supreme Court, positions that might be like-minded.
I want to point out Todd Eccles is with us until 10 o'clock this morning, and we're at 64. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Forrest is teaching a course this morning. Speaking of courses, Todd, we've got about a minute and a half before the break. You've got some stuff coming up.
Yeah, I've got my enhanced concealed carry permit class is actually tomorrow. I still got some room left in there. It's kind of August is usually a no-go for me. September is kind of a slow month. I did compare it, and it is comparative to September of last year. It's just because people are in the middle of harvest and they just got back to school and stuff. But I'm going to have a decent sized class tomorrow. I still have positions and spots that can be filled. If you got any questions, you want to call me, talk to me about it, get on the list. You can call me, text me at area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. I'm also having on September 30th, that is a Saturday. It'll be in the morning for about 4 hours. I'm putting on what we call our Defensive Tactics 101 class. And we're going to teach you how, the art of drawing a firearm, how to do it safely, how to get shots on target, and do it safely, reholster safely, all kinds of stuff like that. If you're interested in that, get a hold of me as well. I've got actually one spot left for that class. And then they'll do that class again probably in October. And I'll have my October dates for my enhanced permit class in the next day or two. I was hoping I'd have them by this morning, but I think the law enforcement officer that does that part, I think he works nights right now, and I think he was sleeping. So,
well, you'll put that up on Facebook when that happens.
Yeah, I'll throw it up on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Message me, email me, like the page, and I look forward to seeing from you.
We've got more coming up with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense. Bill Colley with you as well this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 63. Todd Eccles is with us from Patriot Defense, and Bill Colley as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Almost lost my sheet of paper here. I just wanted to pass along. Forrest is teaching a course himself today, but he wanted me to mention, and we brought it up on the air last week, that a neighbor of his, who's one of the nicest people you could probably, he says, come across, was badly hurt in an accident with a trailer hitch getting pinned against a wall. It was a wall or a truck, but the fellow is having a difficult time in recovery, and family already has medical expenses in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. What he decided to do, Forrest did at Washington Street Pawn, and a lot of other people can get involved and obviously help out with this, but they're selling tickets, and tickets was it a rifle or a shotgun? I don't remember.
I believe it was a rifle.
Rifle. And he's selling tickets, and what he'd like you to do, if you can, pop into Washington Street Pawn or one of these other locations, Burley Ace Hardware, Joe's Market in Murtaugh, Rufus True Value in Murtaugh, and what you can do is you can buy a ticket, but the money is actually going to go to the family. But there was a fellow who came in last week, and he's from Sunrise Organic Dairies, and he stopped in Washington Street Pawn and gave Forrest $500 and said, "This is for the family's expenses." And Forrest said, "Oh, let me get you a ticket." He said, "I don't need a ticket." And Or I said, I'll give you a ticket. Just you
Just
can
take
always
something.
turn around and give me the rifle back, and we can start all over again.
Right.
And so he did that, but it was really heartening to see that happen. 9:24 right now, and if you'd like to reach the show, we're talking firearms this hour. The area code 208-736-0300. That's 208-736-0300. Since we're on the subject of self-defense, as we usually are, Glenn Beck's website, The Blaze, has a story of Taco Bell in Cleveland, Ohio. Have you heard this one yet?
I got it sent to me, but I haven't opened it yet.
So two guys walk in. It's about 2:45 in the morning. They order the 5 people on staff to get face down on the floor, and then they start rifling through the cash register. Unfortunately for them, 3 of those 5 people on the floor were packing, and now one of the robbers is dead. He's gone straight to the nether reaches, and the other one, police are looking for him. He may be, though, sporting a wound and dripping blood behind him.
We're hoping.
Yes. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate your show. I think the good question to ask the governor of the Virgin Islands would have been if he owned firearms and if he turned his firearms over to the National Guard as well.
Yeah, that's a good
It
question.
is. Yeah, he's probably got a bunch of people around him that protect him with firearms. So yeah, I agree 100%. That would have been a great question to ask him.
Carlson has been on the topic of the Second Amendment for the last few weeks on his program, and I thank the caller for chiming in. If you had more, call me back. But he had a guy on the air who was one of these gun grabbers from California a couple of weeks ago, and Carlson said, "Well, what about these rich celebrities and politicians who carry?" He said, "Like Michael Bloomberg has a group of people around him. He doesn't want anybody else to carry, but he's got a group of bodyguards who all carry." And the gun grabber said, "Well, Tucker, they're celebrities. They need to have this protection." Tucker said, "Well, what about the average guy out there? Doesn't he get the same consideration?" And that's their mindset. Their attitude is that they're special.
They're the elite.
Right.
They're the elite, and that's crazy. It's just I think it was a few months ago after that shooting at the baseball practice. Oh yeah, and they were they wanted to push their thing that was going to allow congressmen and women and whoever to carry when they were up there. Am I going? Yeah, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to try to they were talking about trying to push something like that through. That's the elite. They want to protect themselves. They don't care about us. We are in charge of our own security. We have to take care of ourselves. We were just talking about the hurricane, and I watch on Facebook, neighbors helping neighbors, groups of people traveling down there. What they call the Cajun Navy, and all those people down there. I've seen people in great big jacked up monster trucks helping people out. They're giving more help, helping each other than the government. The government's not going to take care of you. They really aren't. You need to be prepared to take care of yourself. So you need the firearm for protection, possibly from the government or from the bad guys who aren't going to heed the government warnings.
And we were talking off air. If you believe in end times, and at some point things are going to come to an end.
Oh yeah.
But if all of these disasters, whether they be earthquakes or fires or they be hurricanes, tornadoes, all of these things give you what could happen on a wider scale on a local level. And that local level is a good lesson for us to see exactly what happens and what you need with looters and theft and all of these things that take place.
Oh, exactly. And now's the time to learn from these lessons. Learn from watching what's going on in Florida, what's going on in Texas, what happens in California when the shopkeepers are standing up, they're defending their businesses with AR-15s that happened years ago. But learn those lessons and take them to heart, and put into place what you need to, so you don't have to go down that same road.
I remember that Korean grocer in Los Angeles. That was what, the 1993 or 92 riot?
Yeah.
And he was perched up atop his store.
Yep.
And nobody bothered him.
No one bothered him. Would you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. But yeah, it's time to be prepared. At the very least, for your family, maybe for your neighbors, just be able to protect what's yours and be able to, have the food, have the gas, have the guns, have the ammo. Just be prepared. Prep, I guess. Can your food. Build. Grow your gardens. Learn how to self-sustained.
And have that bug out plan too. You may need
Yeah.
it, and be willing to go somewhere where you can have some area, maybe some natural defense, but take those firearms with you because there may be a fight at the gas station or over
Yeah.
that last loaf of bread. Anything like that can come up.
Yeah, I mean, there's people are going right now, and I heard they went to get gas and they couldn't find a place to get fuel. This is down in Texas, and one guy said he went out at 10:30 because he heard a place was supposed to be getting fuel in, and he stood in line till 3 o'clock in the morning to get fuel. Can you imagine how stuff was heating up in that line? I bet.
Yeah, yeah. Tempers will flare, and we've got a short break. Half an hour still ahead. If you've got a question or comment, any questions about training and courses and even firearms, feel free to give us a call in the next half hour. Right now, 9:30 at 64 on KLIX. Todd Eccles joining us in studio from Patriot Defense. I want to point out that Forrest Anderson from Washington Street Pond he's away teaching a course, a safety course himself this morning. Bill Cowley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX, newsradio1310.com at 64. I'll call it 934. We're getting pretty close. Telephone number, area code 208-736-0300. If you have any comments or questions today related to firearms, self-defense. You have a question, Todd.
I do. I went out to the county fair this week with my family a couple times, and I carry everywhere I go, everywhere that I legally can, and I encourage everyone to do the same. And obviously, I did there as well. I go around and I see people I know, I see friends of mine, I see people that have taken my class over the last 3-4 years, and I know that they're not carrying a firearm. Why, if you have gone through the trouble to take the class, do you not carry a firearm? I don't. Maybe my brain is wired wrong. It's just a big question I had, and I asked my wife that, and she just kind of stared at me like, "Why are you asking me this?" But why don't you carry a firearm? Is your life not that important to you? Is your family's life not that important to you? Do you not carry because it's uncomfortable? Do you not carry because you just don't care? Do you not carry because you don't see a reason to carry? Those aren't the not being comfortable thing. It's going to be uncomfortable. You have a firearm on your waist, you have a firearm in your bag. It's going to be heavy. It's going to rub on you a little bit. You're going to feel it. It's going to be uncomfortable. There's ways to mitigate that. But my question is, why don't you carry a firearm if you have a permit? Why don't you carry everywhere you go? And maybe if someone's listening that's taking my class, or there's someone out there who can answer this question, call into the radio station. Bill will give you the number. Just answer this question. It just frustrates me. I don't understand why people do not carry a firearm if they have a permit to do so.
And the other part of that is, I guess a lot of times people just think, well, it's inconvenient or it's cumbersome or
they do, but why even take the class at that point? I guess you can have it in your vehicle and stuff like that, but inconvenient. Is being dead inconvenient? Is watching someone gun down your family inconvenient? Is that's inconvenient. If you had a gun, you could possibly stop that.
Well, a lot of people are dealing, of course, with workplaces, and we'll get back to this maybe a little while, workplaces that have some restrictions. But then again, if you can store it in the vehicle, that's probably not a bad idea.
I understand the workplace thing. I get that. But anywhere else that you're able to carry your firearm.
We have a caller with us. And caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX. Go ahead. All right, we'll try again. 208-736-0300.
Thought it was the answer to my question.
Yes, yeah. But then again, there we go. I think we've got somebody back with us. You're up next. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing with me is I have a concealed weapons permit, but I work for the Postal Service, and so when you can't even take it and have it on the premises, you leave it at home.
Yeah. Can you if you go to the grocery store, do you take it with you?
No, but I usually stop on my way home.
Can you park off the property?
No, because I'm a rural mail carrier.
You're rural mail. Okay. So yeah, I understand the work thing, but I'm like, I saw people I knew at the fair. I say people I know at restaurants, and this is on the weekends or the evenings, maybe when work's not involved. Because I myself have a day job which I cannot carry at. I do understand that we all have to eat. We all have to make a living. But my question is, when you're out on your date with your wife, when you're at the movies with your family, we read the articles about where these things happen at big, large gatherings, places like movie theaters, sporting events, places like that. If you are legally able to carry in those places, why aren't you carrying?
She makes a good point. I worked in the Postal Service, and I know the frustrations people sometimes have from. I worked in a sorting plant. I did get offered a job as a rural carrier, but I was already back in radio. But I understand why there may be some restrictions because sometimes you want to strangle someone.
Right.
But that's a story for another day. We have another caller with us. Caller, about a minute and a half left in this segment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't have a concealed carry permit, and I don't carry, obviously. But, back in the Old West, it seemed like you were expected to use your gun if you carried it. And I think there's a lot of people that even though they take the class, they're kind of afraid. They don't want to shoot somebody. And in reality, we don't really experience that very often. I mean, obviously, in my lifetime, I've never been in a situation where I've seen somebody shot, where I've had to defend somebody with a gun or anything like that. And I'm 42 years old, so the reality is we don't experience that very often. So I think because of that, we become somewhat complacent. We don't think we're going to need it, so people just don't pass it around.
I can understand that too. And you said people become complacent. Complacent can kill. We know that. When we talk about in my class about having the defensive mindset, and you have to. We reach a point in my class where I start talking about defensive mindset, and I say, hey, look, you need to be able to, if you're going to carry a firearm, and you're going to carry it to defend yourself, and you have to use it. This is what you're going to go through. This is what you're going to have to expect. This is just me telling you. I mean, every person's going to go through something a little bit different. And I get to a point that says, if you're not okay with drawing that firearm and shooting someone or having to kill somebody, having to actually shoot or kill someone's son, daughter, dad, husband, father, mother, whoever the bad person might be, they come in all shapes and sizes, then maybe carrying a firearm is not for you.
We have a break, 20 minutes or so left still in the program. Please stick around. We've got more on this subject coming up. Just a quick note, though, too. I think a lot of the view that we have of the Old West, that everyone was actually carrying a firearm, is a bit of, it's part of that myth that came and was really promoted by television and movies because firearms were expensive. Todd Eccles is joining us in the studio this morning from Patriot Defense. Forrest Anderson is involved in teaching a class himself this morning. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. I'm going to mention this one more time because Forrest is doing some heavy lifting on this, and we should share it with you. He is helping raise money to offset some medical bills from a neighbor of his in Murtaugh who was crushed by a trailer hitch, has lost a leg, has some severe internal injuries. The family's medical bills running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what Forrest is doing is he has a rifle that he's donated. You buy a chance on this, that money is going to the family to help them. And there's going to be just travel expenses back and forth and the like, small expenses that come up. You can also buy tickets not only at Washington Street Pawn, but at Burley Ace Hardware, Joe's Market in Murtaugh, and Rufus True Value in Murtaugh. Forrest also mentioned that he had someone walk into the shop last Friday morning from Sunrise Organic Dairies and just drop $500 to the cause, which is a wonderful thing. It's 9:43. We're at 65 on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. And again, for people who'd like to take a course with you, Todd.
You can text me. You can call me. Area code 620-794-6223. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. I do have an enhanced class tomorrow, actually. I've still got plenty of room. You can call me tonight, text me. We can get you in that if we need to. I had just received a text from the gentleman who does the law enforcement portion of my class, and it's real long, and I have to read a bunch of it. But probably by the end of the day, I'll have some dates for October.
I wanted to point out our last caller referencing the Old West just quickly before we get back to the phones. I grew up in our house. We always had Gunsmoke on every week, and the show always opened up with Marshall Dillon in a shootout in the middle of the street with a bad guy, and of course, he always killed him. But this whole notion that guys would go into the streets and draw and have these duels, that again is television and movies. It's not reality. Didn't happen.
And they use that for any state that wants. We talked about this a while back, but any state that tries to usher in, like, let's say, constitutional carry. Or anything like that, or any college that wants to, state that wants to make carry legal on college campuses, they'll say, "Oh, there's going to be blood in the streets. It's going to be like the Wild West." I mean, I've heard that dozens and dozens and dozens of
There
times.
was no Wild West.
The fact is, it doesn't happen. Your argument is null and void. It hasn't happened. It doesn't happen. That's not a good argument anymore. But they keep bringing it up, and I'm sure there's a handful of people out there that still believe it.
We have a caller. Caller, you're up next, and you're on the air with Todd Eccles and Bill Colley. Go ahead. That outer space caller again, not getting through. You're on the air on KLIX. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I've been listening for some time to especially to this one, since I am a hunter and I am a shooter, and et cetera, et cetera. And on the concealed carry, you're always saying, oh, the 9mm, the 380, the this, the that. Well, don't shoot a 45 because most people can't handle it. Don't shoot a 40. And, and I've shot, I'm going to say, thousands of rounds. And when I say I would hate to face a 22 long rifle semi-auto handgun in the hand of somebody that knew how to use it worse than anything else. My wife has done military police work. She's worked in law enforcement. She said some of the worst wounds are from 22 long rifles because they go in and they bounce around and they go here and they go there. They don't stop instantly, but they sure disable. And for a lot of people, it would make sense to use a gun they can handle. I'll let your guy respond to that. Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. Now, I never said don't carry a 45, and if I like to joke about calibers a little bit. And I don't think I've ever come right out and said, don't carry a 45, don't carry a 40. It's when you get new shooters that all of a sudden want to shoot and they show up to my class with a subcompact 40 caliber that they can't handle. That's what bothers me. But and Forrest has repeated it over and over again as well. It's the shot that counts and hits its target that does the damage. There's nothing wrong with a 22. Now, if I can handle a 9mm or if I can handle a 45 caliber, should I carry a 22? I'm probably going to go with the biggest gun I can comfortably handle, the biggest gun that I can shoot proficiently. Nothing wrong with a 22. I'm not downgrading the 22. The 22 has taken a lot of lives and done a lot of damage over the many years it's been around. So if my class, when you come to my class, I tell everyone, they'll say, well, all I have is a 22. Bring a 22. They'll say, well, all I have is a single shot 22. Bring your single shot 22. It's a single action. Bring your single action 22. I don't care. Bring it. And if that's all you have, if that's all you can afford to shoot, if that's what you shoot proficiently, if that's all you can shoot because of a disability or something like that, that's fine. Bring it, and I will show you how to shoot it, and you can get your concealed carry permit, and you can carry it. I don't care what you carry. I don't care how you carry, as long as you are proficient with it.
The 9mm, though, has enough stopping force that, number one, the argument has been it will not necessarily go through a series of walls and hit your neighbor's house, which you don't want to do. It has the stopping force. But it's almost so universal any longer that, look, if you're in a situation where you've got, half a dozen people in your home, and we talked earlier about these disasters that happen. Let's say you're in Florida or you're in Texas, and your home is under assault.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lot of 9mm ammunition, it is so universal that you could pass that around, so you don't have a lot of confusion. So the fact of the matter is, it's become such a standard that I think that's why a lot of people are using it.
Well, and I carry a 9mm. I got a few different calibers, but I carry a 9mm, and I like it because I can carry more rounds in my firearm. And the technology has come so far that with a good defensive round, so a good 9mm defensive round hollow point, one that's proven itself, is going to be just as good as, let's say, a 40 cal. But it's going to be less recoil. It's going to be easier to shoot. You're going to be able to get on target quicker. So if I was approached by someone and they said, come with me, and they took me to my house, and they said, your wife and your kids are in there, there's some bad guys in there, we're not going to tell you how many bad guys are in there, and they had a table up front, and they had a 45 right there that was whole, a 1911, let's say, and it had 6-7 rounds in it, or there was a 9mm sitting right there, and it had 16-17 rounds in it. and they said, you can grab one of these firearms and you can walk in the house and save your wife and kids. Which one am I going to take? I'm going to go with the 9mm. I don't know how many people are in there. I don't know how many bad guys are in there. I got 7 rounds versus 16 or 17 rounds. I want the one that I'm going to be able to shoot better and get back on target. I'm going to have more rounds. Just some people, 45 is good, but it's only going to be the round that hits its mark that's going to do the damage. Okay, so when you go into a defensive situation, your shot rate is going to decrease. You're going to have your best day on the range is going to be, or your worst day on the range is going to be better than your best day in a self-defense scenario. Your shots are going to fall by like 70-75%. So if I've only got 7 rounds and I only hit with 1 or 2 of those, but I've got 17 rounds over here on the 9mm, and I'm going to be able to hit with 8 or 9 of those, I'm going to take that gun every day, all day.
People, and you've never discounted this. You've always pointed out people should carry what they're comfortable with, and some people may be comfortable with that 1911.
It's a personal choice,
and with 45.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it seems that we pointed out earlier, and I used that word almost universal. So many, my 9mm, I have friends who carry the same thing. Some of them are women; their hands aren't as big as mine. But it's amazing when I was asking people about the model, how many people are actually carrying this because. It is the simplicity of use.
Right.
And again, as you say, you have a lot more shots in it. You've got 17, and so I think that part of it. And again, we were talking a few weeks ago about families where husbands and wives will buy the exact same model. So if you're in that situation, you could push a magazine back and forth across the floor to each other.
Sure.
And you don't have to worry about it not fitting.
Right.
So you're always going to have that backup, if you will.
Yep. So when you use a firearm, and when you have a firearm for self-defense, I don't care what caliber it is. I guess you need to have what works for you. So you need to be proficient with it. It needs to be dependable, and it just needs to run. You need to be super comfortable with it. So if you're comfortable with a 22 pistol, and that's the biggest caliber that you can shoot proficiently, fantastic. I will say this about 22, okay, and I'm not picking on any certain gun or anything like that. A lot of the 22 handguns that come into my class are very, very finicky and have lots of problems, repeatedly shooting as you pull the trigger, bang, 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 bang. They'll jam up, they'll stovepipe, there's a light round. Okay, it is what it is. The 22 will take a life, yes, but they don't always run properly in handguns. They're dirty. It's dirty little ammo. It carbons up the gun quickly. And it can create all kinds of problems. So you have to understand that as well.
And when I took the course, we had a couple of people who were there in the spring with revolvers, and they were very accurate.
Uh-huh.
They're very easy to handle. You may not get as many shots, but again, that becomes a personal choice.
Yeah.
And they're easy to clean, I think. There's any number of things you might decide to go with, but that comes down to your own personal needs and what your expectations are.
Whatever you carry and however you carry. Train to that. Train to to those deficiencies, and work beyond those. Figure out if maybe you need to carry extra ammo. Maybe you need to do this. Maybe you need to do that. If you're unwilling to do so, then look at a different firearm.
Want to point out you can reach our program today. Perhaps you agree with Todd. Maybe you don't. That's okay. 208-736-0300. 208-736-0300. Some people, a shotgun is a better means of defense.
It is. And if you can handle a shotgun, it definitely is. I see what I did today, Bill. I tried to get a little controversy in the show here. And I may have...
Never happens in talk radio.
I may have stirred it up a little bit. It never happens on this show.
Never. We have another caller.
Oh, here we go.
Telephone number 208-736-0300. Caller, you're up next on the air.
Good morning.
Morning.
This morning I don't usually chime in on the gun show. I like the guns and everything, and my son's the 10th Mountain Soldier. I'll tell you what they use right there, 10th Mountain Infantry. I'm reading from his commendation up here. He dropped his M240B machine gun, picked up his M9 pistol, walked up to a bunker, started killing the people to save his lieutenant from being killed. Anyway, so they use M9s, and his personal weapon's a Colt 40. And most of the guys are carrying heavy Colt 40s, and they're shaved, and the armor's trim them where you just look at them and they go off.
But these are guys, though, who regularly have range time and use these, and so they have experience with a number of different firearms.
Well, that's exactly right. And the thing about them all is, and every one of them, and the military and stuff, and probably some of the police too, these guys shoot so much, and the average homeowner is almost dangerous to himself. You know, and I'm a good shot. I'm not a great shot, but they come through the front door. They're not leaving standing up. But bottom line is like this, you know, these fellas are trained, and you have to be trained to do it. And to pull the trigger on somebody, unless you're trained to do it, that's the biggest issue. And then you got, remember, the round's going to keep on going, so you might hit the bad guy, but at 10 feet it goes through the bad guy, and the guy next door parts his window, and he's dead too.
Yeah, it could happen.
Going down around. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
I'm all for the guns, and people should be armed and excellently expert trained, or don't have one. Just call 911 and hide out for 10 minutes. That's about the best shot. And some of my friends here in town are good local sheriffs, and they kind of agree the same thing, I think. But I'm all for people carrying. I'm all for people knowing what they're doing. And like you and I, by running New York so much, they got different laws. You get 20 years having a handgun in New York, but let me tell you a secret. You go down to the market in Hunts Point, downtown in Brooklyn, the Bronx, everybody's got a gun. Every trucker in the place has got a gun, whether they're not supposed to have one. Hey, most of them got two.
And I want to thank you for the call, because he brings up something about big cities. I have a friend who lives in Washington, 21-year veteran of the U.S. military, and he told me, he said, even before the Heller decision, he was walking around carrying. He didn't worry about it. He said, you know what? I'd rather be that old line. He said, tried by 12 than carried by 6.
Yep, I've heard that line too. I agree with it. I will say that good call, by the way. Thanks for all your input. There was one line that kind of made me think for a minute. There, you know, and I'm not knocking law enforcement. Law enforcement is great. Not all law enforcement are gun people, though. Every person who's in law enforcement, that doesn't mean they're a gun person. They may shoot to qualify. They may shoot at their training, but that doesn't mean that they're a gun person. I do personally know a lot of law enforcement guys that are great shooters, that are fantastic shooters, and they're continuing their education all the time, even taking training classes on their own so they can be more proficient at it, because this is what could possibly save their life, you know, in the line of duty. But I do know a lot of everyday average Joe citizens who are into firearms, who spend more money on classes and who shoot better than some well, I will say a good portion of law enforcement. Just because you're not law enforcement, just because you're not military, doesn't mean you aren't good with firearms. And I don't think this caller was you know, going that direction at all. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
And I had a friend, he joined the police department after having been a TV news anchor for many years. And then he spent 20 years. They basically said, oh, you were in the media? All right, well, what you're going to do is to answer media calls. And when we have a crime, you'll show up with a chief and you'll speak to the media. And he never had to actually use his firearm, because he stood there with a notepad reading off details of the crime to the media and answering their questions.
Some of them don't. I mean, some of them just aren't gun people. They shoot when they have to shoot, and you know, outside of that, they don't go and shoot. And that it is what it is. They're just not gun people, and that's the way it goes sometimes.
Before we wrap up, again, you have a course tomorrow.
I have a class tomorrow. If you're interested in it, got any questions, you can call me, text me. Area code 620-794-6223. It's area code 620-794-6223. Find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense, and I will think long and hard this week, and I will come up with another question to stir the pot for next Friday.
Yeah, well, because we've left all the phone lines going this morning, so hold on to those phone calls. Keep the questions with you. I'd love to see that, though.
So do I.
But we've got to go to Mark Stein following the news. He's filling in for Rush today. The news at 10 o'clock from Fox, and God willing, if the creek don't rise, I'll be back here between 8 and 10 o'clock on Monday morning.